You know that strange moment when time suddenly slows down, when your brain realizes something is wrong before you even understand what it is. Your heart skips a beat. Your stomach drops. And suddenly, every little detail around you becomes painfully clear. That exact moment happened to me at my wife's company Christmas party. And trust me, it started with just one question. One question that turned a perfectly normal evening into something that nobody in that room will ever forget. But before I tell you what that question was, you need to understand how we even got there. Because without the full story, that moment wouldn't make sense. And honestly, the context makes everything 10 times more intense. My wife Sarah and I had been married for about 3 years at that point. And if I'm being honest, we were still one of those couples. You know the kind. The ones people look at and say, wow, they're still in the honeymoon phase. And the funny thing is, they weren't wrong. Even after 3 years of marriage, I would still catch myself staring at her sometimes like we had just started dating. Sometimes she'd be sitting across the room doing something simple like checking emails or reading something on her phone, and I'd just look at her and think, how did I get this lucky? Sarah is one of those people who naturally draws attention without even trying. She has dark hair that falls perfectly around her shoulders. Her eyes are the kind that make people feel like she can see right through them, and when she smiles, the whole room changes. I'm not exaggerating. People notice her. Men notice her. Women notice her. And it's not just because she's beautiful, it's something about the way she carries herself. Confident, calm, comfortable in her own skin. But what always impressed me the most about Sarah wasn't just how she looked, it was how smart she is. Sarah works at a big tech company. The kind with huge offices, hundreds of employees, and meetings that seem to go on forever. And she's really good at what she does. Like, really good. Over the past couple of years, she had been climbing the corporate ladder faster than almost anyone in her department. That meant long hours, late-night emails, business trips, and a lot of company events where I showed up as the supportive husband. Now don't get me wrong, most of those events were fine. But if you've ever been to corporate networking parties, you know what they're usually like. A lot of small talk. People pretending to enjoy expensive food that's way too small. And conversations that somehow always end up being about quarterly numbers or marketing strategies. I usually just grab a drink, smile politely, and let Sarah do her thing. She's the social one. I'm more of the quiet observer, but this particular Christmas party, this one felt different from the start. Sarah had been stressed about it all week. Apparently, some very important executives from the company's main office were flying in for the event. There were rumors about promotions, department changes, big announcements. Basically the kind of night where everyone was trying to make a good impression. The party itself was being held at this really fancy hotel downtown. You know the type. Huge chandeliers hanging from the ceiling. Soft golden lighting everywhere. Waiters walking around with silver trays carrying tiny pieces of food that probably cost more than my entire lunch. It was definitely one of the more upscale events Sarah's company had hosted. The night of the party, I was standing in our bedroom getting ready while Sarah was finishing up in the bathroom. I was adjusting my tie in the mirror when the bathroom door opened, and when Sarah walked out, I swear time actually stopped for a second. She was wearing this deep red dress. Not the bright, flashy kind of red. It was darker, elegant, the kind of red that somehow looked both classy and bold at the same time. The dress fit her perfectly. Her hair was pinned up, showing her neck and shoulders, and the way she carried herself, she looked confident, like she knew exactly who she was. I must have been staring longer than I realized because she suddenly laughed. Okay, she said, turning slightly. Is it too much? I blinked, realizing I hadn't said anything for at least 5 seconds. Too much? I repeated. Honestly, my brain was still catching up. I shook my head and smiled. No, I said. You look absolutely stunning. She smiled back at me in that way she does when she knows I'm being sincere. Then she grabbed her coat and said, good. Because tonight might actually be important. When we arrived at the hotel, the energy was already noticeable. This wasn't one of the quieter company gatherings I was used to. The ballroom was packed with people. Music was playing softly in the background. Laughter echoed across the room. Everyone was dressed sharp. You could feel this strange mix of excitement and nervousness in the air. Within about 30 seconds of walking inside, Sarah was already being pulled into conversations. Coworkers were greeting her. Managers were shaking her hand. Someone from another department started talking to her about a project she worked on earlier that year. It happened fast, but honestly, I expected it. Sarah is the kind of person people want to talk to, so I did what I usually do at these things. I stepped back a little, grabbed a drink from the bar, and watched her work the room like a professional. Now I'm not the jealous type. I trust my wife completely, but I'd be lying if I said I didn't notice how people looked at her, especially the guys. It wasn't subtle either. You could see it. That moment when someone realizes who she is and suddenly stands a little straighter while talking to her. But Sarah handled it the way she always did. Friendly, professional, confident. About an hour into the party, I was standing near the bar when something caught my attention. There was a guy across the room, tall, probably mid-30s. Perfectly styled hair, expensive suit, and he had this expression on his face that instantly made me uneasy. It was that overly confident smile some people have. The kind that says, "I'm important and I know it." He was talking with a group of people, but his eyes kept drifting towards Sarah. Not quick glances, full-on staring. At first I tried to ignore it. But after a minute or two, it became pretty obvious. He wasn't just noticing her, he was studying her. And then, something happened that made my stomach tighten a little. He started walking toward her. Slowly, like he had already decided something, and I had no idea yet that this guy was about to ask the one question that would completely change the night. So there I was, standing near the bar with a glass in my hand, watching this guy slowly make his way across the room towards Sarah. At first, I told myself I was overthinking it. Corporate parties are full of people meeting each other, networking, starting conversations. That's the whole point of events like this. But something about the way this guy moved made it feel different. He wasn't just walking over casually. He moved with the kind of confidence that almost felt rehearsed. Like he had already decided the conversation was going to go his way. Sarah was standing with a small group of coworkers at the time. Her manager was there, a couple people from the marketing team, and one woman named Jennifer, who I had met once before at another company event. They were all talking and laughing about something when the guy stepped right into the circle like he belonged there. Smooth, effortless. The kind of entrance that says, "I expect everyone to welcome me." I watched from the bar as he shook a few hands and started talking. Within seconds, he had the group laughing. He was charismatic, I'll give him that. The kind of person who clearly knew how to work a room. But even from across the ballroom, I could see something that bothered me. His attention kept drifting back to Sarah, not casually either. Every time someone else spoke, his eyes went right back to her, studying her, measuring her. And the longer I watched, the more uncomfortable I felt. Not jealous, just uneasy. Because Sarah's body language was starting to change, it was subtle. But after 3 years of marriage, you learn to read those small signals. She was smiling politely, nodding when he spoke, but she was also creating space, leaning slightly away, taking small steps backward. The kind of quiet signals people use when they're trying to stay professional while also saying, "Please keep some distance." The guy didn't seem to notice. Or maybe he noticed and simply didn't care. Either way, he kept leaning closer when he spoke, laughing a little louder than necessary, taking up more space in the conversation. I watched it for another minute before finally setting my drink down, not because I thought Sarah couldn't handle herself. She absolutely could, but sometimes it helps just having your partner nearby. So I walked over. By the time I got close enough to hear them, the guy was in the middle of telling some story about another company event. "And I'm telling you," he said with a laugh, "the most interesting people at these things are always the ones who look like they'd rather be somewhere else." He looked directly at Sarah when he said it. like the entire comment had been aimed at her. Sarah smiled politely, the kind of smile people use when they're trying to stay friendly without encouraging anything. Actually, she said calmly, I'm exactly where I want to be. These events are great for connecting with the team. A couple people in the group nodded, but the guy laughed again. That same confident laugh. Come on, he said. A woman who looks like you on a Friday night? He tilted his head slightly. You're telling me you wouldn't rather be somewhere more exciting? Some exclusive club, romantic dinner, something like that? There was a brief pause. I could see Sarah's expression shift slightly, still polite, still controlled. But there was a hint of irritation now. Before she could respond, I stepped up beside her. I placed my hand gently on the small of her back. Hey babe, I said casually. I think they're about to start that raffle thing you mentioned. It wasn't the smoothest line in the world, but it worked. Sarah immediately relaxed when she saw me. She leaned slightly toward me and smiled. Oh, perfect timing, she said. Then she turned back to the guy. Brad, this is my husband. She said the word husband with just enough emphasis that the message was very clear. The guy's eyes shifted toward me. And he did that quick up and down look that guys sometimes do when they're sizing someone up. Then he smiled, but it wasn't exactly friendly. Husband, he repeated slowly. Almost like he was testing how the word sounded. Interesting. The way he said it sent a strange chill down my spine. I don't think I've seen you at any of the other company events, he continued. His tone was casual, but something about it felt challenging. I'm at most of them, I said, keeping my voice light. Usually just supporting Sarah from the sidelines, she's the star. I'm mostly here for the free food. A couple people in the group chuckled politely. I hoped the joke would ease whatever weird tension had started forming, but Brad didn't laugh. Instead, he looked back at Sarah again, longer this time, then he nodded slowly. Well, he said, you're a lucky man. He gestured toward her slightly. Sarah here is quite impressive. His voice lowered a little as he spoke. Smart, successful, and clearly, he paused for a moment. Very stunning. Something about the way he said it made my skin crawl. It didn't sound like a compliment. It sounded possessive, like he was evaluating something he wanted. I felt Sarah tense slightly beside me. Jennifer shifted awkwardly. Another coworker suddenly became very interested in his drink. The atmosphere in the group had changed. Everyone could feel it. Brad leaned a little closer, and then he said something that made the entire conversation stop. Actually, he said, raising his voice just enough for nearby people to hear. I have to ask something. He glanced between Sarah and me, then he smiled again, but this time the smile had a sharp edge to it. Is someone like Sarah actually married? The words hung in the air. The conversation died instantly. A couple people nearby turned their heads. Jennifer blinked in surprise. My brain took a second to process what he had just said, but Brad wasn't finished. He lifted his hands slightly like he was being playful. Hey, forgive me if that sounds forward, he said. I'm just saying what everyone's thinking. He gestured toward Sarah. A woman like this at the peak of her career, gorgeous, successful, then he shrugged. She's got options. My jaw tightened. I felt Sarah's hand slip into mine, her fingers squeezed tightly. But Brad leaned back slightly and added the final line that made the entire room go quiet. So when someone says she's married, he made air quotes with his fingers. I just wonder if that's actually the situation. For a moment, nobody spoke. The air in the room felt heavy. A few nearby conversations had completely stopped. People were watching now, waiting. And I could feel anger building in my chest. I was just about to say something, probably something I would have regretted later. But before I could open my mouth, Sarah stepped forward. And the way her voice sounded when she spoke made the entire room fall completely silent.